Hello and welcome to Grade 10 English Lessons. This is Unit 4, Episode 4. In this episode, we're going to learn about summary making and translation. What are some tips and techniques that we can use in order to summarize a text and translate from Arabic into English? Now, to begin the lesson, I'd like to ask you this question. Do you think there is a certain age for playing computer games? So is it only for children, teenagers, or can adults also play? Think about it as we go through this lesson. Now, what computer games would you recommend to your own classmates? Let's open the workbook to page 28 and let's summarize. But first, I want to ask you, what do you think is a summary? A summary is a shortened text written in your own words. Pay attention to in your own words. That means that you have to paraphrase. So how do you paraphrase? You can paraphrase by shortening some ideas, by changing the vocabulary from one word into another that has the same meaning. You can also change the verb form. That means from an active sentence into a passive. Or you could change the word class from a noun to a verb to an adjective, and etc. Now let's practice paraphrasing. In the workbook in page 28, we have the first few lines. Many people, especially the parents of teenagers, do not want their children to spend too much time playing computer games. Now, which vocabulary words can we change here? We have the word many, which also means several, various, or countless. We also have the word especially. It could also mean particularly or specifically. For the word spend, we have use, consume, and waste. We also have the word too much, which also means excess, excessive, or a lot of. So if we change these words, for example, if we use various instead of many, specifically instead of especially, consume instead of spend, and a lot of instead of too much. This is how our sentence is going to look like. Various people, specifically the parents of teenagers, do not want their children to consume a lot of time playing computer games. So, do we paraphrase every single word in a sentence? Definitely not. So let's begin by taking the summary making tips. First of all, summaries are not a place for background knowledge, opinions, and personal information. How do you summarize a text? First of all, you need to read the text. The second thing is, don't let big words scare you. If you find a difficult word in a sentence, I recommend that you read the sentence again and again in order to understand the context. That will help you understand what this word could mean. Number 3, ask yourself, what is this text about? Pay attention to the following. Your summary should be in complete sentences. It should cover the main points and key ideas. It should be in your own words. It shouldn't be written in points, and it should not be off topic. Here we have the rubrics for the summary making. These are the things that we want you to keep in mind or pay attention to as you summarize. First of all, we have the content or relevance of ideas. That means that we want you to make sure that your ideas are relevant to the text and they are not off topic. The next thing is paraphrasing. Just like we did in the beginning, you paraphrase the sentences into your own words. Also, pay attention to your spelling and grammar, as well as the format. Just like I told you in a few seconds, don't write your summary in points. It should be in a paragraph format. All of this will give you the total of the summary making. So, copying the whole paragraph receives a 0. Again, when it comes to summary, we are asking you to write 4 simple sentences. So don't copy the whole paragraph. Exceeding the required number of sentences will also make you lose marks. For example, you get -5 marks if you write 5 sentences, and you get -10 marks if you write 6 sentences and above. Now, open your workbook to page 28, and let's look at this text together. So here, let's read it. The game's designers say that traditional exercise machines, like the ones in gyms and fitness centers, are incredibly mundane to use. People get tired of them very quickly, and so they don't exercise for very long. If they use one of the new joysticks, they can improve their level of fitness by playing their favorite game. Players build up their muscles by pulling or pushing the giant joystick. In racing games like Formula 1, the harder the player pushes the joystick, the faster the car goes. If you want the car to go slower, you pull the joystick backwards. People who have played the game say that you can feel the effect of pulling and pushing the joystick after only 2 or 3 minutes. It particularly affects the upper arms and shoulders. So we've read the text. Now let's read what's required of us. In 4 sentences only, summarize and paraphrase the passage in an answer to the following question. Pay attention to the word summarize and paraphrase. Here we have the question about the text. How can people improve their fitness level through video games? If you look at the text, we can find the answers there. The first one, players build up their muscles by pulling or pushing the giant joystick. The second one, in racing games like Formula 1, the harder the player pushes the joystick, the faster the car goes. If you want the car to go slower, you pull the joystick backwards. And for the final answer, it particularly affects the upper arms and shoulders. So after we've found the answers that we needed, let's go ahead and paraphrase each sentence. Here we have the first one. Players build up their muscles by pulling or pushing the giant joystick. We have the word build up. Let's change it into a different vocabulary item that has the same meaning. So the paraphrase sentence would look like this. Players strengthen their muscles by pulling or pushing the giant joystick. So we change the word build up to strengthen. It's a different word, but it has the same meaning. For the second sentence, in racing games like Formula 1, the harder the player pushes the joystick, the faster the car goes. If we look at this sentence, it's an active sentence. So let's change it into the passive. For the paraphrase sentence, also, in racing games, the harder the joystick is pushed, the faster the car goes. So if you notice, first of all, it's highlighted in yellow. We use the word also as a sequence word or a connector to help us organize our ideas. Then what we did was we changed the original sentence from the active into the passive sentence, which is the harder the joystick is pushed, the faster the car goes. For the third sentence, if you want the car to go slower, you pull the joystick backwards. Now, what do you think are the words that we can change here? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. We have the word go slower. Let's change it together. Furthermore, if you want to slow the car down, you pull the joystick backwards. So we used the word furthermore as a connector. We've also changed the word go slower to slow the car down. The same meaning, but a different phrase. Now we come to the final answer. It particularly affects the upper arms and shoulders. We have the word particularly. This is our paraphrase sentence. Finally, the pushing and the pulling of the joystick specifically affect the upper arms and shoulders. So first of all, we use the connector finally for our final answer or sentence. And we've changed the word particularly to specifically. If you also noticed, it changed to the pushing and the pulling of the joystick. This is the final product of our summary. And this is how your summary should look like. It's in paragraph format. We paraphrased the sentences And we've also used some connectors like also, furthermore, and finally to organize our ideas. Now that we're done with the summary making, let's go ahead with the translation. First of all, let's take some tips for the translation. Number 1, translate meanings, not words. Number 2, avoid word-for-word translation. And I'll show you why that is in a few minutes. Number 3, don't leave spaces for words you don't know. And number 4, look for keywords that make a difference. So translate the following into good English. Let's read the sentence together. يقضي الشباب ساعات عديدة أمام جهاز الحاسوب للعب. We have the word يقضي, which means spend, عديدة, which means many, جهاز الحاسوب, which means computer. And then we have للعب, which means play. Now, if we look at what we've translated so far, spend, many, computer, play. Is this sentence or translation accepted or rejected? It's definitely rejected because we have some missing spaces. It's not a complete translation. So my recommendation is don't leave spaces for words you don't know and avoid word-for-word translation. Because we translated word for word for the word computer, play, and spend, we have a sentence that does not make sense. Now, if you look at this translation, young people spend many hours playing computer games. This translation is a perfect one. The reason that is because we translated meanings, not word for word, and we've also made sure that the sentence itself or the translation makes sense. Now it's your turn. You have this sentence here. يرفض بعض الآباء أن يلعب أبنائهم ألعاب الحاسوب لأنها تضر عيونهم. First of all, I'd like to remind you to look for keywords that make a difference. These keywords will help you translate the sentence. You have the word يرفض, يلعب, ألعاب الحاسوب, and تضر عيونهم. Now, translate the sentence into English, and then we're going to check your answers. Some parents do not allow their children to play computer games because they damage their eyes. If you have a similar translation as perfect as this one, good job. If not, then I recommend you draft your translation, meaning that you write a first translation, and then you edit it and make it more perfect. At the end, write your final translation. So in this episode, we learned the following. We learned how to paraphrase and how to summarize a paragraph. We've also learned some tips and techniques to help us translate sentences from Arabic into good English. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.